The unexpected twist at my family's annual reunion. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My grandmother tapped her glass and said, "We need to correct the record." Conversations died mid-laugh, and the kids stopped chasing each other around the folding chairs. We were at the Lakeside Lodge, where the air always smells like pine, coffee, and sunscreen. I was refilling lemonade from a sweating jug, pretending to be comfortable in the job everyone assigns me. Fix things, fetch things, keep the night gentle. I'm Jordan, the quiet cousin who files photos in labeled envelopes, the one who remembers who's allergic to walnuts. Reunions matter to me because they're the one place I still believe we all try. We bring our best sides, our old stories, our careful apologies. But when Grandma Ruth, at 82 and still dangerous with truth, said we needed to correct the record, control slipped out of Victor's hands. Uncle Victor runs these nights like he runs everything else: clipboards, schedules, a grand finale slideshow at 9 sharp. He shot me a look that said, "Keep serving, keep smiling, keep quiet." Tessa, his daughter, sat at the head table with a face that asked, "What now?" I could feel my stomach tighten. You'd think I'd be the last person with anything to lose, but reputation is slippery, and this family sticks labels like price tags. If Ruth was about to cut one off, whose price was changing? She set her glass down, reached for an envelope in her purse, and said, "Some of you won't like this, but I am tired." I saw Victor go pale the way the lake goes silver at dusk. The projector hummed behind me, waiting to light up our history. I didn't know yet that I was about to become its narrator. One sentence cut through every other noise. "You're not legally part of this family," someone whispered behind me. Silence turned mean. Ruth hadn't said those words. Someone else had, soft and surgical. I turned and saw a notary Hale by the door, trim suit, metal briefcase, expression like an unsharpened pencil. Victor invited him every year for tradition, to stamp the family trivia game winner's certificate. It always felt theatrical, like notarizing a joke. But Hale's presence tonight had a different weight. "We'll address rumors with documents," Ruth said, voice steady as a church bell. "We've relied on stories long enough." I thought about stories. Who tells them? Who gets edited out? Our reunions started small after the war: blankets on grass, potato salad in jars, laughter that didn't try to sell itself. Then money and ambition layered themselves over everything like fondant over a lopsided cake. Victor built businesses. Tessa posed next to charity plaques. The slideshow got longer while the tables got more assigned. My role shrank to logistics, which I was good at, but logistics don't hug back. This year, my fresh wound was smaller than a knife cut. My name missing from the program under Family Archivist. It stung, then it turned into focus. I make proof for a living, librarian during the week, where facts live in drawers that always open. That's what I stand to lose. The version of us I can still categorize. I watched Ruth's hands, papery but decisive, place the envelope on the table. Victor rose, smile glued on, voice warm with static. "Mother, perhaps we save surprises for the slideshow?" Tessa chimed. "People came to relax, Grandma." Gloria, my favorite aunt, leaned near me and murmured, "When Ruth is this sure, there's a ledger behind it." I remembered how she once told me, "Love isn't a secret. Love leaves receipts." Then the lodge door opened, and a courier in blue stepped in carrying a second envelope. The courier stopped at the head table like a messenger in a play who knows the next act is going to hurt. "Delivery for Ruth Winfield, time sensitive," he said, checking his handheld. Victor tried to intercept, but Ruth's palm, small and queenly, held him off. "Thank you," she said, sliding the new envelope beside the first. Cameras rose discreetly. Even our gossip has manners. I kept pouring lemonade because motion calmed me. That's when I saw the first oddities. The seating chart taped to the wall had been swapped. My table was suddenly overflow, and a stranger's name sat where Gloria's should be. On the memory board, where I'd pinned photos by decade, 50s, 60s, 70s, 3 crucial pictures were missing: Ruth's wedding day, Anna Lane with the newborn in 61, Victor's baptism. The gaps looked like pulled teeth. Outside the windows, 2 figures paced in the dusk by the water, taking hushed calls and throwing glances back at the lodge. Tessa saw me staring and grabbed the mic. "Let's not get distracted by admin mistakes," she said, smiling just a bit too hard. Tonight is about unity. Even her earrings looked anxious. I told myself this was nothing, a clumsy mix-up, an overeager cousin redecorating. But doubt crawled in and made a home. My phone buzzed, a voicemail from the county records office reminding me that the copies I requested last week were ready. I hadn't requested anything last week. I never forget my own paper trail. I looked at Gloria, who raised an eyebrow that asked a full paragraph. You didn't, she mouthed. I shook my head. Then someone is borrowing your name, her eyes said. Borrowing or burying, it felt the same. The projector flickered on, and the first slide was not ours at all. Instead of our usual baby montage, the screen showed a scanned document. Grainy, stamped, official. Birth certificate, County of Melrose, the header read. A wave of startled noise broke around the room. Victor lunged for the remote. This is improper, he barked, but Notary Hale was already moving, calm as weather. Let's remain seated, he said. Ruth stood again, spine straight. If we are family, we can handle facts. The certificate belonged to a year we all knew by heart, 1961. The mother's name matched, the hospital matched, but the time of birth was wrong by exactly 12 hours compared to every story I'd heard. The attending physician's signature didn't match the one on the framed copy in Ruth's hallway. I remembered that frame. I'd dusted it last Christmas. Tessa's voice thinned. Typos happen. Hale cleared his throat. Typos don't shift noon to midnight. Laughter without humor rolled through the lodge. I stepped closer to the projector and saw metadata in the corner. Scan June 18th, 7:42 p.m. Records window B. My voicemail had said June 18th. I felt the slow click of puzzle pieces waking up. Victor regained the remote and killed the image, replacing it with a harmless snapshot of cousins eating corn in 1999. Applause sputtered, a helpless reflex. Let's play family trivia, he announced brightly. Winner gets notarized glory. It was the pettiest kind of misdirection, and it almost worked. But the courier's second envelope still sat unopened. Ruth tapped it once, like a judge tapping a bench. After the game, Victor said, we'll address any questions. Hill's briefcase stayed latched. Gloria's hand found my sleeve. Stay near the truth, she whispered, and take pictures of the truth. I lifted my phone, not sure whether to aim it at the documents or at faces. The Trivia Bowl's first question was about blood types, and Victor refused to meet my eyes. We limped through the trivia round, every answer a detour around the thing we weren't saying. When my team won by a single point, Hale offered a stamped certificate no one wanted to take. Let's do this properly, Ruth said, and slit the second envelope with a butter knife. Inside lay a printout from a DNA testing service, not a flashy one, a plain-looking PDF with a boring font that meant business. The top line read, Parent/child relationship probability, 0%. The room inhaled and never exhaled. Tessa stood so fast her chair screamed against the floor. Who ordered that? She demanded. Who violated? Her voice shook. Ruth's eyes, sharp as knitting needles, cut to Victor. I did, she said. At home, with your father's comb and a swab you left behind. Victor laughed, both hands raised. Mom, you misunderstand these silly kids. Hale stepped closer. They misunderstand nothing, Mr. Winfield. My librarian brain started arranging what we knew. Mismatched certificate, missing photos, a DNA result, a seating chart that moved people like chess. I remembered a receipt I'd logged while cleaning last month. Framing services dated the same week Ruth's hallway suddenly redecorated. Jordan, Gloria murmured. The photos on the board. Can you check your archive? I pulled up my scanned albums. The missing pictures existed on my drive, metadata intact, but the versions on the board were cropped replacements I hadn't made. Edges were clean, faces aligned, names beneath were unchanged. It was professional erasure. Victor's voice softened to a velvet threat. Enough spectacle, he said. We will talk as a family, not a courtroom. Hale unlatched his briefcase with an audible click. You invited a notary every year. Tonight you have one. Victor smiled at me, and it felt like a warning folded into a favor. Suspicion didn't arrive like thunder. It seeped under the doors and waited. While Victor smoothed the room with jokes, I slipped behind the riser where we store cables and the battered laptop that runs the slideshow. My old admin password still worked. A folder named heritage_final sat on the desktop like a neat lie. Inside were copies of my scans, but every date modified. Read Tuesday, June 17th, 10:02 to 10:23 a.m. The exact window my timesheet showed me at the library reference desk, helping a man find city directories. Someone had edited our history while I was cataloging everyone else's. Recent items pointed to a thumb drive that wasn't attached. d://lakeview/revisions/temp. One file, name froze me. Will_draft_Ruth_1962. TIFF. I clicked and got the error you only get when evidence leaves the room. The device log showed the drive mounted at 9:51, ejected at 10:25, June 17th. I took photos of the screen and emailed them to myself because chain of custody matters even in families. I was about to close everything when the printer icon blinked orange. A pause job waited. Memo_payment to Luke. JPG. I resumed it, and a hospital foundation receipt slid out. April 3rd, 1961. Private ward retainer, paid cash, initialed R.W. and pressed hard enough to dent the paper, V.W. The dollar amount was circled, for $100, a month of silence 64 years ago. In the corner, Ward 3B after hours. I shot the front and back, then tucked the page beneath the laptop so Victor wouldn't see it if he wandered back here looking for control. In the print buffer pane, a second birth certificate began to spool out slowly. I didn't wait to see whose name lived on that second form. I grabbed the half-fed page and canceled the job, pocketed the scrap like a hot coal, and moved through the door that leads to the lodge kitchen. Gloria stood at the stainless island with Ruth perched on a stool, sipping water from a paper cup. "You look like you found the basement," Gloria said softly. I told them about the edited timestamps, the missing thumb drive path, the hospital receipt, the mystery certificate. Ruth set down her cup. "Ward 3B, she murmured. "The nurses there didn't ask questions." Victor's voice carried in from the hall, light as a salesman's pen. 10-minute stretch, folks, and then the slideshow of our lives. Hale leaned against the freezer like a patient metronome. "If there are documents, we should authenticate before anyone rearranges the evening," he said. "Where did you get that receipt?" "Printer Q," I said. "The computer says someone used a thumb drive Tuesday morning. I was at work." Gloria squeezed my forearm. "Then whoever touched it knew your schedule." I opened my phone. County clerk's voicemail again. "June 18th, 7:42 p.m. Your copies are ready." Copies I hadn't requested. "Let me retrieve them," I said. "If they're forged, we'll know. If they're originals, we'll still know." Hale nodded. "Records office keeps a late window tonight. I can certify copies." Ruth looked at me with the blunt pride that used to steady me as a kid. "Don't chase ghosts," she warned. "Bring back the living truth." On my way out, Victor stepped into the doorway and asked who gave me permission to leave. "Bathroom," I said, too fast, and tried to slide past. Victor's hand hovered near my shoulder without landing. "You've always been helpful, Jordan," he said, gentle as a leash. "Be helpful now, and keep the evening calm." His smile didn't touch his eyes. "Gloria needs me," I said, and he turned his head toward the kitchen like a predator pretending to be polite. I got to the parking lot with my heart in my throat and my phone already mapping the county clerk's office. Melrose County Records kept a tiny after-hours window staffed by a clerk named Martinez who lived on peppermint tea. She recognized me from genealogy requests. "You called about my order?" I asked. Martinez checked the bin, frowned, and brought out a manila envelope. "Picked up earlier today," she said. "Signed for by you." She turned the log, and there was my name in a careful, not my hand cursive, time-stamped 5:11 p.m. June 18th. Beneath it, a phone number that wasn't mine. "Security footage?" I asked. She shrugged toward a dome camera. "We recycle weekly," she said. "But I can print what the order contained from our system." The list made my scalp prickle. Certified copy of a 1961 birth certificate. Certified copy of a 1962 will draft naming guardianship. And an access record for a safe deposit box at Melrose Trust, signed June 20th, 12:09 p.m. by V. Winfield. Martinez slid over a desk phone. "Call the bank," she said. "They'll confirm if you're on file." I wasn't on file. Someone used my name to fetch proof before I knew there was proof. The pattern finally had edges. I drove to Melrose Trust, where the lobby smelled like carpet cleaner and quiet panic. The manager on duty, a woman named Patel, checked her screen, then asked me to wait by a fake ficus while she made a quick call. When she returned, she had a visitor log. Safe box 714. Access June 20th, 12:09 p.m. Signature V. Winfield. Witnessed by teller ID 337. We can't disclose contents, she said, but we can verify signatures. Hale met me there after Gloria's text, producing his stamp and an air of courtroom oxygen. Together we compared the box signature to Victor's credit card receipts from charity galas. Public documents are handy when you collect programs like I do. Same swoop on the V, same needle straight F, same cruel little flourish on the D. Patel cleared her throat. There was an envelope deposited June 14th, she said carefully. Marked Ruth, to be opened if... She didn't finish the sentence. If what? I asked. If I don't remember, Ruth would have written. I thanked Patel, then sat in the car with Hale and arranged the plan in sentences that didn't tremble. We would gather certified copies, print my photos with timestamps, and request the slideshow laptop's event logs. We would invite Victor to the slideshow run-through, place Ruth beside the screen, and ask him to explain the mismatched stories in front of witnesses. And if he refuses? Hale asked. Then we project the truth without him, I said. My phone buzzed. Tessa, where are you? Grandma's getting dramatic. Don't feed it. I typed back a neutral lie. Printing programs. Behind the bank's glass, Victor's SUV idled at the curb like it had been waiting for us. I drove back to the lodge with the feeling of being followed wearing a tuxedo. Inside, the lights had softened to that forgiving yellow that tricks everyone into thinking they're kinder people. Ruth's lipstick had faded. Gloria reapplied it with the tenderness of a midwife. Tessa stood in the doorway to the kitchen, arms folded, earrings trembling. Jordan, she said, Victor says you're stirring grief. I'm arranging chairs, I said, and carried two to the front, one for Ruth, one for the notary. Victor appeared behind Tessa, voice wrapped in honey. You found a printer then? The question landed like a hand on my back. He ushered me toward the sink under the pretense of helping with plates. The kitchen emptied with elaborate normalcy. You're good at cataloging, he said, almost admiring. But families aren't archives. They're performances. Let me manage the stage. He leaned closer. Delete whatever you think you found. He smelled like aftershave and rain. And if I don't? I asked, because my mouth was tired of being polite. His smile didn't climb anywhere near his eyes. Ruth will break, he said softly. Tessa will break. You, librarian, will be the one who did it. For a second I saw the future like a floor plan. I keep the peace and swallow a poison that never stops working. Then Gloria laughed in the hall, clean, defiant, and the spell cracked. I won't break, I said, too quietly for a hero. Victor set the faucet to scalding hot and asked if I understood the consequences now. We set the trap with hymn-book politeness. At 8:30, before the slideshow, Hale asked for a brief family circle so that tonight's reminiscences are properly attested. People love ceremony. They gathered in a loose ring, some because they were curious, some because they didn't dare be the ones who stepped away. I placed a rolling cart by the projector with printed exhibits labeled in sensible black type. A1. Hospital Foundation Retainer, April 3rd, 1961. A2. Birth Certificate Number 4492 Metadata, June 18th, 7:42 p.m. Scan. A3. Seating Chart Revision Log, June 17th, 10:12 a.m. A4. Safe Deposit Access, June 20th, 12:09 p.m. A5. Will Draft Index Reference, Book 14, page 229. Ruth sat, hands folded. Gloria stood behind her, shoulders squared. Tessa hovered on Victor's right like a ribbon tied too tightly. This is excessive, Victor announced, but the crowd had already assigned itself to the courtroom they claimed not to want. Hale opened his book of seals. We will confirm authenticity only, he said, voice steady. Interpretation is for the family. I clicked the laptop. The first slide, the hospital receipt. The second, the metadata corner from the clerk's scanner. Murmurs rose, then organized into questions with teeth. Who ordered these? Why were the photos replaced? Why is the birth time different? Victor lifted a hand like a conductor about to save the orchestra. Because Mother is tired, he began. The lodge door opened, and Pastor Riley walked in holding a small fireproof envelope. Riley had blessed our reunion since before I could tie my shoes. He never arrived uninvited. Ruth asked me to keep this safe, he said, placing the envelope in her hands. For a day when words might fail. Ruth's fingers shook, but her gaze didn't. She nodded at me. I cut the seal with Hale's letter opener and slid out a single-page letter, brittle with age, and a black-and-white photo of a nurse holding 2 bundled infants. Ruth spoke without notes. In 1961, the hospital made a mistake. They told me it would be kinder to fix it quietly. We signed a guardianship draft in case we chose to undo the error later. We didn't, because one of the families moved away. She closed her eyes once, as if touching a bruise. Victor was not the child I delivered. He was the child I raised. Gasps fluttered across the room like birds hitting glass. Victor went very still, the way a statue might try to remember breathing. Tessa's hand flew to her mouth. "Grandma," she whispered, "what are you saying about me?" Ruth lifted the photo. The nurse had written 3B, midnight, switch, on the margin. Hale touched the draft reference. Book 14, page 229, he murmured. Guardianship consideration, 1962. Victor found his voice the way a man finds a weapon. "So you lied to me my whole life," he said. "And now you're lying again to punish me." He turned to the room. "This is a hateful fabrication." Gloria pointed at A4. "Then why the safe deposit rush, Victor?" she asked. "Why erase the photos?" Victor's lips curled as he hissed that the rightful heir left decades ago because Ruth drove them out. The word heir detonated us into camps. Cousins who had been toddlers in the slideshow Polaroids became jurors overnight. Hale projected the signature comparisons. Patel's log sat on the cart. The pastor's envelope lay open like a wound. "Next steps," Hale said, practical as rain. "Include a petition to confirm guardianship intent and, if desired, a quiet action to correct estate documents." Victor laughed, that hard, handsome sound that used to win donors. "There will be no quiet anything," he said. "You cannot erase my life with a clerk's stamp." Tessa gripped the back of a chair. "Dad," she whispered, "what did you put in that box?" He didn't answer, but silence has a grammar, and Tessa could read. She turned on me. "You like chaos more than love," she said. "You like evidence more than people." I wanted to tell her that evidence is how you love people who were told to disappear. Instead, I said, "We can protect you." She flinched like I'd thrown a pebble. Ruth reached for her. "You are my granddaughter," she said, those 4 words heavier than law. Outside, blue lights swept the pines as a patrol car rolled by, then kept going. I felt the cost arrive quietly. Tomorrow the library would call, ask why the county clerk had my name on an order I didn't place. Someone would complain that I'd dragged the pastor into gossip. Gloria would lose friends who preferred comfort. "File the injunction," Hale said gently to Ruth. "Tonight." Ruth nodded once. Victor smiled at me like a mirror and promised to end my peace at work. Morning bled into us while we were still standing under the lodge's soft bulbs. We didn't throw anyone out. Everyone simply sorted themselves into silence or fury or something like prayer. By noon the next day, Hale had filed a petition to preserve all relevant documents and freeze transfers from Ruth's trust until the court reviewed the guardianship draft. Ruth agreed to therapy, and so did I, because cleaning up a century of stories leaves you holding a broom that points both directions. We set boundaries that felt unglamorous and sane. No more secret envelopes. No edits to archives without 2 signatures. Reunion seating by lottery. And a new rule that we would visit the county records office together once a year like a picnic. Gloria drew up a simple written agreement. I'd help catalog anything Ruth remembered if Victor and Tessa stayed out of the archive room unless invited. Tessa texted a single sentence. "I can't forgive you yet." I replied with 2. "You don't have to. I'll keep the door open." The pastor delivered a list of counselors who take Medicare and stubborn pride. At the lodge, we boxed the slideshow cords with labels even Victor would approve of, then handed Hale the key to the thumb drive lockbox. When I walked Ruth to the car, she pressed my palm around something light and metal. It was the tiny key to a safe deposit box labeled in Ruth's hand as correct names. I took a week of quiet shifts, reshelved atlases that still knew where we came from, and wrote down the parts that will matter when memory thins. The court would take months. Families always take longer. Victor didn't apologize, and I stopped needing the apology to breathe. Tessa sent a second text, a photo of her reflection in the lake, feet in the water, captioned, "I need to know who I am without the plaque." I told her the records are ugly in places, but they don't bite. We can read them together. Ruth called every evening at 7 to ask me to remind her where the nurse in the photo stood. I told her 3B, midnight, and heard her exhale. We set the next reunion date anyway. The plan isn't to perform perfection, it's to publish the minutes of our mess and stand by them. If you're watching this and holding a secret you were told was kinder, here is my practical advice. Write down the dates. Keep copies off-site. Tell one person who won't flinch, and make a folder with names you'll still say in 20 years. The hopeful image is simple. A long table near a quiet lake, paper plates, unlabeled chairs, Ruth glancing at me and nodding when a new cousin introduces themselves by the right name. Next year, when the projector hums, Truth will take the microphone first.